give you an opportunity to kind of think about how we get involved in the campaign. All of the speakers have actually allowed opportunity for people to talk about that, so actually we've all been talking all day about that. Originally we were talking initially about how did you get here, what was the situation now, why was this happening, and then this final session is to hear from the campaigns locally about what the fight is and how we can get involved. But as I say, we're all discussing that, so hopefully you've all had a chance to talk, and I'll just move on and introduce the three panels. The panel are going to each do a short introduction speech, and then we'll take questions for about 20 minutes. So I hope that we will bear with me and stay till that's finished. That'd be really helpful. Okay, so the three speakers, we've got macklin-Doherty. She's a doctor and a health campaigner. We've also got Charles Harty, who's the GMB senior organiser, and John Donovan, who's speaking from Sussex to defend the NHS and is also a health campaigner and a health worker. Do you have any preference to go first?
I don't mind.
Yes, so we'll ask first, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, hi. I'm Ashley and I'm a junior doctor in the NHS, and as you've heard all of this morning, you've heard a lot of the detail about the political ideology that's underpinning a lot of what's happening in the NHS. And I think the only useful thing that I can share really is what my experience as an NHS junior doctor allows me to see how this political ideology is affecting patients, how it's affecting the public and how it's affecting staff, and what the reality of those cuts and the privatisation are leading to in terms of the human cost. And also critically what we can do about it, which is so important. And I think an important part of that is thinking about what it is that awakens people. So I want to share with you how I was awakened. I love the NHS. I've always wanted to work in it since I was about that high, my parents told me. First doctor in the family, so didn't really know what it was going to involve. But I knew I wanted to try and help make some of the worst situations potentially in people's lives slightly more bearable, slightly more manageable. And I've ended up specialising in the treatment of cancer patients. And I've worked in the US for a very brief period of time, and I cannot begin to describe how valuable what we have in this country is. People talk about this being a religion. It must be a religion. We must preserve the NHS because it is the best single thing that has ever come out of this country, in my opinion. It is the most progressive and ideologically and morally upstanding institution in this country's history, in my opinion. And it became very clear to me, even from day one, working on the wards, that something was very wrong. I had studied in Manchester, and as part of that you go out to some very deprived parts of the country. And when I started day one as a foundation officer, I was working in Chelsea, one of the richest areas in the country. Art on the walls, fountain in the foyer, huge private wing. And it struck me then what an enormous disparity there was in levels of care across the country, that we didn't really have a national, equitable, universal, comprehensive system of care. We had huge levels of inequality, and that was 10 years ago. In the time that I have worked in the NHS, which is only short, is only a decade, it has been the post-economic crisis period of imposed austerity on public services, and I have seen our public service get shrunk and constricted more and more. And the human cost of this it's immeasurable. You can quantify things in statistics and graphs and show people numbers. But let me tell you what bed cuts mean. Bed cuts mean when a cancer patient has just been treated with chemotherapy and they call me up and they need a hospital bed and they are begging for admission, they are breathless, they are in pain, and I want to admit them. I can't. And I have to send them further away than they can travel, knowing that puts them at risk, and hearing them say, please doctor, please don't make me go there. I'll be waiting for hours in agony. It is devastating. You cannot put a number on that. People often ask me what the effects of privatisation really are. Does it really matter if it's a private company or a public provider delivering the service? Let me give you some examples of what it means. In my hospital, the elective transport service used to be provided in-house by the NHS. We knew the drivers, they would take patients to their cancer appointments. It then got privatised. Drivers started not showing up. They didn't know where they were going. Patients would just miss their appointments. There was a huge turnover in the staff. They weren't part of that common team. And also, very importantly, which Yusuf mentioned, the bureaucracy was so much greater. I had patients in clinics where we should be talking about end-of-life care, bringing in forms for me to fill in to justify why they should now be eligible to receive elective transport, because conditions and criteria are introduced to increasingly ration care. That's just one example of privatisation. Costs are cut, and the biggest proportion of the cuts that they can make in the private sector are to the labour, because that's the most expensive part. Highly skilled professionals are expensive. My partner is a cardiothoracic surgeon, apparently one of the most expensive to train in the country. He should have a registrar and an SHO on his team when he is performing coronary artery bypass grafts. Because of cuts, he no longer has a registrar and missing on the rota. He no longer has an SHO. So when he's in theatre and complications happen and the patient starts bleeding, he has been in situations where he has had to scream for help from neighbouring theatres when he should have 2 people assisting. This is the human cost that you cannot put onto a graph or onto statistics, and it's the kind of thing that every single junior doctor and senior doctor across the country are faced with every single day. And then an incredible thing happened in 2015. The worst Secretary of State for Health in history, Jeremy Hunt, although there have been some contenders, came out and he lied. And he told the British public that the reason patients were dying unnecessarily at the weekends was because of us. Because we weren't there, because we weren't working hard enough. So transferring the blame of all of the political decisions that they have made over 10 years onto us, who are absolutely working our absolute hardest to try and mitigate against the very things that they have imposed on us. And it was outrageous. And you had 50,000 junior doctors who we're not in the profession of dealing with lies. You know, you can try and cover something up, but you're going to get found out. And we were shocked that someone could get away with so maliciously misrepresenting information. We actually couldn't believe it. And junior doctors are not a radical left-wing bunch on the whole. A lot of people would have voted Conservative. I'm not one of them. This does not represent my political affiliation, don't worry. But there are a lot of Conservative junior doctors, and they were shocked, and it shook them to their core, and it woke a lot of us up. And what it led me to do was try and understand what could possibly have motivated such a level of deceit to the British public. We all knew it was rubbish. The British public knew it was rubbish. Everyone you spoke to believed the junior doctors. So what could possibly have motivated this political assault on us? And it became very clear from reading books written by Professor Tallis and lots of people, Yusuf's book, that the attack on junior doctors was absolutely part and parcel of a wider political attack to undermine the NHS. It became increasingly clear with everything that I'd seen, my experience every day, everything that I'd read, and that there was an active attempt to try and dampen that down, to cover that up. Because 85+% of the British public wants the NHS to continue to be publicly run and publicly delivered in the public interest. So the only possible way to get away with attacking and undermining it is to cover up what you're doing and to do it slowly and to misrepresent what you're doing. I was very active in the junior doctors' strike, and I was very active within my union, and that year was one of the hardest years of my life. When you feel the overwhelming force of a highly powerful political sphere, the media, and corporate interests lined up against you, you feel that heat very, very strongly, let me tell you. Threats, malicious attacks, all sorts of things. It is terrifying and it is very scary, and it made one thing very, very clear to me. The only thing that is more powerful than the weight of those forces acting together is us, is all of us. It's the majority, it's people, it's democracy. And the only reason there hasn't been a revolution, as Tony Benn has put it, I believe, is because not everyone is fully aware yet of what is happening, and people aren't linked up with other people that are happening. So these are the things that we need to do. Junior doctors ultimately were convinced that they didn't have enough support, wrongly in my opinion, to be able to continue that defence of the NHS. But that battle in and of itself was not a defeat, because I think it hugely shifted public awareness and public opinion, and critically politicised a whole generation of junior doctors. We are having conversations now that we never have done before, and doctors are influential. And importantly, I think doctors have started listening to campaigners and the public and started linking up with them. So as a result of that, I got involved in health campaigns together. I thought it was an amazing force for building collective action. It's an umbrella group of campaigns from all over the country, as Louise has mentioned. And I think the only way that we can overcome this kind of neoliberal force that wants to transfer public assets to the private sector is by collective action, by sharing ideas, by joining up, by talking to each other. I believe social media is an incredibly important part of that. It's an incredibly powerful tool because it allows for unfettered, unfiltered communication away from the filter and the bias of the mainstream media. And what we saw with the general election, when we were allowed to clearly deliver our message online through social media, it resonates. People believe you, they know what you're saying is true, and that's why we got 11 million people to view our ideas and what we're about. So we've launched this campaigning app, which I think is going to be so important. It will have campaign groups like this on there so that everyone can access, everyone can link up with, and everyone can meet other like-minded people. And critically as well, meet with NHS staff. You've got 1.3 million people working in the NHS who, just like the rest of the public, don't really know what's going on, are spending most of their time firefighting an increasingly attacked system, a sinking ship. So they need to be involved in it too. And I think the app and meetings like this are the ripple effects. They allow you to go out, speak to other people, to spread that word, educate people, empower people. It was only through me going to a public meeting of 12 people that ignited the spark for me wanting to go back and wanting to talk and wanting to read and wanting to be active. So every single event like this is so important, and I'm so uplifted every time I come to a meeting like this on a Saturday or in the evenings that people like you are willing to come and spend your time fighting for the NHS. You are the power. You are where the power lies, and it's through your action that we'll get the NHS back. Thank you.
My name's macklin-doherty. I'm a senior organiser with the GMB, and I'll be as brief as I can. I said I'll do 6 minutes, so I'll do a stopwatch and see how quickly I can get there. What I would say about the GMB is we're an industrial organisation, and that's where our main focus is. Our focus is in fighting the trench warfare, department by department, ward by ward, and every hospital that we have members in. That's what we do. I would just want to maybe give a brief overview of where we're at now and how we got here. It's been mentioned a few times that this is the culmination of a 40-year process. This started in 1980. This started with the election of Thatcher government. And we are now getting towards what is the real pinch point, where the most valuable and most important of our public services is now up for grabs. Effectively, what has happened over the last 40 years, I'll just throw sort of a couple of figures at you, is that there has been a transfer of publicly owned assets into private hands. There is an estimation of publicly owned land, there's been about 2 million hectares of public land sold off or privatised in the past 40 years. It equates to something like 10% of the British land mass, which used to be public owned, which is now in private hands. Sounds a bit tangential. However, a couple of years ago, the NHS property services were privatised. And guess what? They are doing the exact same thing. Hospitals, clinics, hospitals, any centres, any health centres, that they are now under the control of the NHS property services. And they are just selling them off. They are privatising them hand over fist. 3 streets away from here, there is an NHS building which is up for redevelopment, and it'll just go into a private company's hands, and we have nothing to say in that. And what we've faced over the past 40 years, most of my life, has been what Noam Chomsky would call manufacturing consent. You defund, you attack, you make it look as if there is no alternative, and then you privatise. And that's the reality of the situation. There has never been any other intent by the Conservative Party. They have resisted the NHS from its inception, and they really tried to run with it from 1979 onwards. We did miss an opportunity under New Labour, where we had 13 years in which we could have changed the status of the NHS and made it given it a much safer ground in British society, and unfortunately that was passed up. When I say that the GMB is an industrial organisation, by that what I mean is we try to organise staff within the NHS, because the one thing that you do find within the staff is that they've been under so much pressure for the past 15, 20 years, and it's accelerated somewhat in the past 8 years since the excuse of the banking collapse, that they become demoralised, they become fearful for their jobs, and they really just want to try and go on and help people. What we try to do as a trade union is bring a sense of organisation, bring a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood into the process, so that people understand that they're not on their own. And we do that in individual hospitals, in individual departments and wards. I would just touch on a couple of things. I suppose one of the reasons why I'm here is that I would just have to touch on a couple of things that I think as much as it's all a bit dark and a bit doom laden, locally we can claim some good successes. When the domestic services were up for tender at the Brighton and Sussex University Hospital, it moved from ISS, who really were a bit of a joke, an awful company, and it moved into Sodexo, who were no better. Well, we took that as an opportunity to talk to the staff who were transferring over, and we fought what was effectively a guerrilla war with Sodexo. We challenged them every day, and I mean every day, we challenged Sodexo in any changes that they tried to make and the way they were treating staff. And we eventually gave them so much of a hard time that after 3 years they gave up. They walked out. They could not take it anymore. The upshot of that for us was that out of 700 people who worked for Sodexo then transferred back into the NHS. And they went on to a gentle change terms and conditioning, and we're working through that process, which is not completely finished, but we're getting there. Now, that was something of a feather in our cap. Lo and behold, 2 years ago, we walked smack bang into Co-Performer. Co-Performer got the contract for patient transport services across Sussex. We told the CCG that this was a disaster waiting to happen. We knew it wouldn't work. And within 3 months, Co-Performer had hit rock bottom. What I will say, I'll be brief, I was going to give you a full rundown, but what I will say about Co-Performer is they are shysters and they were crooks. They were stealing money right, left and centre. We know they were double charging the NHS for one journey. We know they were claiming 2 on that. We've got evidence on that. The CCD got themselves into such a state that they had to eventually pick up the tab for the wages. We had something like 70 staff sitting at home who couldn't go to work because there was no transport vehicles for them, and the CCG continued to pay their wages. An absolute disgrace, a scandal. They paid something like £1 million in wages to keep people sitting at home, rather because they knew they couldn't dismiss them because we'd run such a strong campaign. The final, I would say, disgraceful aspect of that position was that Co-Performer, despite getting everything wrong, despite only having a contract really for 6 months, walked away with £16 million. When people tell you there is no money in the NHS, pick up the stone, look underneath. There is money everywhere in the NHS. It is just not going into the staff, and it is not going into patient care. It is going somewhere else, as already been pointed out. So, there's been a lot of discussion about what can we do and where do we go from here. There's a 3-word phrase, organise, educate, advocate. We are all involved in workplaces. Encourage people to get themselves organised and into a trade union that's going to stand up for them. Get yourself educated and educate your colleagues and your friends and your neighbours and your community. Get involved with your local politics, your local politicians. We actually vote these people in, and it does astound me that somebody like Tim Morgan could be the MP for anywhere, never mind Shore. I mean, it's just, if there's a bigger waste of space in the country, well, it's probably in the constituency next door, which is Peter Buckland, who nobody ever seen. So, it astounds me that these people will get re-elected. We in this room, and our friends and our colleagues and our families, we need to make those decisions now. We need to get these people out of power. And I would say that the current Labour Party is of a different stripe, although it's beset with massive problems. However, it has to be a coalition of what is in the Labour Party and the various pressure groups and organisations that are out there, like Keep the NHS Public, the National Health Action Party and such like. We have to work together, because I wouldn't, being a bit of a doom-monger, in 3 years' time, this meeting will be pointless. If we did not get ourselves sorted, in 3 years' time, we are down the road. And we may as well just let the dogs go and put the fire in, because it will all be done. I cannot, and what has not been touched on, and I'll just throw this one in because maybe we should discuss it, Brexit is going to kill us. And it's opening up a door which, to be fair, if we don't all put our weight behind and keep those doors shut, we will have an American healthcare system. And finally, I've experienced the American healthcare system. I lived in America for 2 years. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It is an appalling system. And it is the most expensive and it is the least value for money on the planet. Let's not go there, people, and let's just take these meetings and take the fact that we are not alone. Let's take that as a strength and get out there and work and campaign tirelessly from now until whenever it takes to defeat the privatisation and the decimation of what is possibly one of the greatest inventions of mankind. So let's get out there, let's pick up our bootstraps and get fighting. Thank you very much.
For me, what seconds on myself. Hello everybody, I'm John Donovan. I'm speaking on behalf of Sussex Defend the NHS, but I'm actually also an NHS worker at the Royal Sussex County Hospital in Brighton. I'm also actually a GMB member as well, as it turns out. I just want to say a few things about the history of Sussex Defend. Sussex Defend was founded about 2012. About 4 or 5 people in the pub decided to meet up and what we're going to do to save our NHS. Time onwards, of course, we now have people from a broad church across from Hastings, roughly across to here, Worthing. We also go north as well. We are, as what we say on our actual cards, workers, campaigners, communities together. We're not necessarily political, but what we do believe in is what Bevan stated in 1948 when he founded the NHS. The NHS was actually founded in a country that was totally broke from the Second World War. So when they come along and say, I'm sorry to get a bit emotional, when they come along and say that we can't afford it, it's rubbish. Absolute rubbish. It is ideology, nothing more, nothing less. How can we put it? It's been a bit depressing all this, listening to all this. How can we put it right? First thing I would say is, you are the people. You are not MPs. The MPs are our servants. The councillors are our servants. The hospitals are our servants. Every single penny of the NHS is owned by you, the taxpayers, and national insurance. You have the right to shout out at your GP, at your doctor, at your hospital if they deny you service. The government come out with a load of rubbish concerning lives, and they do it all the time. They're now saying on a few points, I'll just say to you, immigration, 0.03% of the NHS budget is spent on people who are not entitled to use it. Not my figures, independent figures from the King's Fund. People are over 70. Why should we have old people who are 70? Let's make it quite clear, why they're over 70. Yes, it's good luck, but it's also the people in the NHS are doing their job. We're keeping people alive. And we should be keeping them alive. Sorry. So, what I say is, I've worked in NHS for a long time. I've seen the joke of nurses washing again, for example, disposable scissors so they can use them again because we can't afford to buy new ones. I've seen operations where instruments that should technically be abused and thrown away because they're not sharp and all the rest of it. And by the way, I know this because I work in sterile services. I see what happens to instruments that are used that should not be used again, but because of pressure of management and cost cutting that are used on patients. Then of course the first thing that happens is if something goes wrong, pear-shaped, the staff are blamed. Staff who work themselves into the ground, who work 24 hours, 7 days a week. We don't do it because we do it for the pay, I can assure you, as you most we gather. We do it because we care. We care. And as such, people in the country ought to realise that everybody here has a responsibility for their NHS. Everybody. So when you go out here today, it's not just a matter of saying, well actually that bloke got quite emotional speaking and talking about the NHS. Go and buy t-shirts. Go and buy leaflets, or not buy leaflets, you get leaflets free. But when, for example, our t-shirts, we do t-shirts, I know they are expensive, but we do it because we need to get money so we can print leaflets, educate people, and that's what we need to do. A lot of people I speak to when I speak out to them, they say to me, oh, well, I didn't know all this. Well, let's get it active, let's get people learning and knowledgeable about their NHS. It is their NHS. So what I say is, wear your t-shirts all the time. There's a chap at the front who's got his t-shirt on.
Somebody always comment, whenever I wear it, somebody always says, yeah, well done, mate.
My question,
I say, get one yourself.
exactly, I had one on a bus recently in Brighton. I was on a bus. Someone said to me, oh, what's that all about? I just talked to them. Before I knew it, I'd have the bus listen to me. So what I'm saying is, people will say, oh, the NHS is not important. People also say, I will never need the NHS. Well, hello, everybody will need the NHS. What you get in the NHS is unbiased, free, because it is, I say free service, but you pay for your taxes, but something which is not about money, it is about service to the patient. And that's what you must remember. Every private operator in the NHS will have to take out at least 20% of their profit. And that's what they do in the NHS. Now, the one final thing I will say to you is, the one thing that can get people motivated about fighting for the NHS is their own services under threat. I don't need to speak to you here in Shoreham about what happened at Southlands. What was a good hospital, might needed some work on it, but it's now 3/4 housing. Why? Because it's sold off for profit. Not for the likes of you, for the few. You look at, for example, the county, you might have seen it, £480 million of public money, not PFI, but be very warned. As some of the previous speakers said, Social Care Act 2012, what does it state? 49%, 49, nearly all 0.5% of that hospital's revenue soon will have to come from the private sector. Is that £480 million of your public money, which is for your services, is it going to be for public patients? I doubt it. I think some of those blocks, and we've actually done this in Defend the NHS, we've challenged the outgoing MP, that was a Tory, sorry about using that dirty word, but he actually would not answer the question. And this is what's happening, Brighton General, locally. They're looking at closing that down and turning it into something else, mostly to sell the land off for housing. It is not silly. There's this thing called the Naylor Report, where private contractors, if they can donate something is actually not used anymore, they'll get double money from the government to do it. The government are actually seriously sorting out the NHS in respect of the fact of killing it. Now, I'm one of these people, like I said to one of the other persons, as far as I'm concerned, we need to get a change of government firstly. You can't do much with what we've got, they're rubbish, and they're a waste of space. But when we do get a government, hopefully, I say this as a Labour party man, we do get Labour government in, what we need to do is invest in people in the Labour. I was speaking to a doctor, I was telling the lady next to me here, who only qualified at Brighton A&E last May, June time, and I said, he was worked out of his son, actually, we went out a pint together, and he was worked off his feet, and I said to him, you know, you seem to be enjoying it. He said, oh, I love it. I said, I love it. And I said, so hopefully you're going to stay in the NHS. Sorry, mate. I'm off to Australia after Christmas. For less work, for less hassle, and more money, and a better future. That is what's happening in the NHS. And as I said, we talk very quickly about immigration. I come back to, I work in a multiracial department. I've got people from Arabia. I've got people from Alaska. I've got people from Australia, all over. And we work together. With people leaving, I've got a family from Poland who are going back to Poland before April because they're worried about Brexit. We've got to be very, very careful because what will happen is if we don't stand up now and fight for it, it'll be gone. And the only people who are going to benefit will be the rich because it'll be government of the rich, by the rich, for the rich. And if you're really enough got the money, you die in a gutter. And that's what happened in America. And I'll say, but one final very quick thing. Remember what happened in America when Mr. Obama was in power? He did an actual event out. He actually asked any American TV company to go onto the street of any town in America or city and film an event. Boston K2S, it's record up and do it. They actually filmed a chap who had a heart attack on the side of the street. In America, you will always get an ambulance. Why? Because an ambulance charges the hospital. So you would always get taken to the hospital. What did they do? They got him on the table. The first thing the actual consultant did, not the consultant, he's in the American system, he opened his jacket to see if he had a credit card or some way of paying for his treatment. Nothing about whether he was dying from a heart attack or not. That is why Obama brought in what he does, and that's unfortunately why the likes of Trump and co have abolished the Obama law. Because they don't want people who don't have the money. They want it just for the people that do. And I'm sorry, that is criminally wrong, it's morally wrong, and as a human being, it's a disgrace and it should be shouted out to everybody. Anyway, I say, get out and be active. I would say also about, to Sussex Depend, we do this sheet here, on the back it's got about a lot what you can do, at the front when you feel really annoyed about it, stick that in your window. Everywhere you go, get copies of it and stick it in your window. We do that across in Worthing, we do that across Sussex, we do that across the country. Join health campaigns together, like Sussex Defender, wherever they do it. We've got in October, we've got a big march coming up in Brighton. Come along to it. It's about austerity. It's about what we should get from our NHS and all the other things this government are doing. It's wrong, it's not morally right. And I want to say thing about Brexit, and I'll just say this once. I believe the Tories want to have a no Brexit deal. We talked about WHO terms very, very quickly. What will that mean? 20% on everything that comes into this country, 20% on everything that goes out of this country. If you're rich, you're not going to be bothered about 20%, but everybody else will suffer. So it'll be then okay, and we'll be the ones that will suffer. In every way, we need to get rid of this government. I'm sorry, that ideology is totally mad and bent in my book, and I've told some of the Tory MPs that to them faces. It's totally unacceptable that people are dying on the streets of any town with pressure trying to know, but we need to support our NHS, we need to fight for it, and as Ben said on the back of the card, which you can get from Sussex Defend over there, the NHS will survive as long as there's people with faith, with the fight for it. And that's what we need to do. Tell your friends, tell your neighbours, and remember, as I was told the day I joined the NHS, one day I could be a patient there, I could be my brother, my sister, my husband, my wife, my uncle. So we do it for the people. So we need to fight for the people, we need to fight for our NHS. The best service, as Charles always says, as far as I'm concerned, the world's ever seen. And if we don't do it now, we never really will. Thanks very much.
Thanks. I just want to thank the speakers. We're really short of time now, so I'm just going to take a few questions if that's okay, and the panel can decide who's best placed to answer that. Is that okay? Yeah, I'm happy to take a few more questions because we're already well over what we should be here, but I'm really conscious that you spent a lot of time. But I want to give the opportunity to say something when you choose one. Is that okay? I can see Raymond's itching. And if it's okay, we'll take all the questions and then come back for a final response. If that's okay.
Can you hear me well? Yeah. Is that audible? Yeah. Just two quick responses. One is, I think it's important to hang on to the statistic of deaths. The number of deaths that have occurred following austerity, or the sharp rise in deaths, is greater than at any time since 1940. And I think the pyramid of corpses is in fact austerity's greatest legacy. The second is, I thought, Aileen, your talk was absolutely fantastic, as the others were, but I think your talk ought to be on film, because it brings together actual personal patient experience and the broader picture. And I think someone should imprison you in a room until you agree for that very talk to be filmed. I think it's extraordinary, and it goes straight to the heart of the matter.
So, Adam at this end. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, just one point and one question. I find that when talking to people, it's quite easy for them to brush off that they'll never need to use the NHS. But according to Scope, 9 out of 10 people are not born with a disability, so it will happen at some point in their life. And I find it a lot easier to kind of get home for people when saying that. The other question really is on the cost of medicine and what's the panel's view on the use of eminent domain for trademark and patents of medicines.
See, move it up.
Yeah, thanks for some really inspiring talks. And it's just really a question about, you know, what are the issues now to fight on? And I agree about the death statistics. I think it's, you know, really important. And thank you for the point about disability too. I think these are really important. And I just wanted to draw people's attention as well to the fact that that this week a group of medics were in the press because they have returned their medals that they were awarded through going to work with Ebola victims, and they've done it in protest at the charging for NHS services to migrants and asylum seekers. And I think that's in this country, and I think that's a really important issue and crosses all sorts of boundaries and ought to be taken up by local campaigns as well, particularly because the government's attempt to deport and discriminate against Windrush migrants and the Windrush community it was immediately met with huge support from the population, and I think that's a really important point. And particularly because it challenges the narrative as well that migrants are at the source of the problems with NHS funding. Thank you.
And I think we just, I'm not sure, I didn't quite hear the question there, but I'll just take it as a
What are the issues? What are the issues to fight them?
I'll just ask the speakers if they could respond. I think there's some quite technical stuff, but and also maybe they're closing. So if you want to say, I'm aware that we've got a new Secretary for Health. It'd be quite interesting what you'd want to say to him that's polite. That would be, you know, your immediate. What should happen now?
I do, because otherwise I'll get reported. Thank you very much for your comments. I don't think being locked in a room is very democratic, but no, thank you very much. Those points are taken on board. The question about drug companies and the exploitation of the NHS is huge. In oncology, my field in cancer care, the pharmaceutical industry is absolutely dominant in the provision of research and development and the production of drugs, and they absolutely monopolise a market which drives up the costs of cancer treatments and therapeutics to phenomenally outrageous costs which prohibits people accessing them. So oncology for me is the epitome of the problems of the markup of drug companies in accessing drugs. And what they do, very clever, is they tend to focus on markets that are most profitable, i.e. patients where they can sell drugs to them over a number of months and years, just long enough for them to make huge profit margins, but not completely cure the disease, obviously, because then you're not going to be able to keep selling drugs. So cancer is an ideal market for pharmaceutical companies. And if they have a successful product, and I see this every single day at work, they will take that design and they will very slightly modify it and very slightly change it and then develop it and sell it again in multiple different ways under multiple different logos. So I totally agree with you, there is a huge problem with the pharmaceutical industry dominating costs of drugs. The way to counteract that was the way the NHS did it for many years with NICE, so a regulatory valuation, so a decision, again a collective decision about how much we are willing to pay for certain drugs to give a certain amount of benefit. They would be very difficult philosophical, moral and economic question, but extremely important for us to all think about in the age of corporate dominance and how we deliver healthcare. And that's being undermined again. And there's something called the Cancer Drugs Fund, which is a ring-fenced system where millions of pounds get siphoned off just to be able to deliver cancer care. So I think that undermines it. But yes, I think renationalising the NHS and there being greater oversight of the economy of drugs would help fight back against that. Issues to fight on. I think Matt Hancock, the new Health Secretary's maiden speech, was very interesting. And he listed 3 main things he was going to be focusing on. Staff, I'll believe it when I see it. Prevention and technology. Extremely worrying. Extremely worrying. When we have lost 50% of our inpatient beds in 20 years, we've got some of the lowest numbers of staff to patients, we've got some of the lowest number of hospital beds to patients, we have got crumbling equipment, failing surgical instruments. We need to be focusing on disease as well as prevention. We need to be focusing on actually treating people and providing the care that they need when they're unwell, not pretending that we can stop people getting unwell ever. So that's very worrying, that narrative. And the technology issue. We've already seen examples of where this is incredibly dangerous. There is an app that is being used in London to replace GPs, GP at hand. It is produced by a private health company in areas where there is a shortage of GPs. So, of course, it would be incredibly expensive to actually train more GPs and have that skill set that you need. So instead, you cherry pick the easy cases and you let a computer algorithm deal with that. There's no regulation, there's no evidence for this. I have seen examples of the app grossly misdiagnosing patients, like barn door errors that as a year 1 medical student, if you got that wrong, you would probably fail. And these are the things that are now treating people, diagnosing them in London. So I think we need to be very, very wary. But these are the kinds of issues that we can really highlight because it's terrifying. And if the general population are aware that these kinds of things are happening, I think there would be uproar. So there are so many things, and I'm sure that these things will unravel as Matt Hancock spends more time in office. But I'll let the others talk.
Thanks.
The issue on drugs. I've never understood how you can have a national health service and not have a national drug service. I just don't get it. You know, I just don't get why you would be put yourself in hock to private companies. You know, and you get every now and again there's a little scandal about overcharging for drugs within the NHS. I do think one of the issues around treatment within the NHS is what the media is very good at is picking up a particular case and running with it. So picking up on Ashley's point about NICE and the oversight of the use of drugs. Just recently we had the whole case with a young lad called Alfie in the Merseyside Hospital, and a right-wing religious cult sunk their teeth into that and somehow persuaded a great number of people in Liverpool that money should be spent trying to keep this boy alive when all medical evidence was saying it's palliative care, it's end of life care really, because the boy was in such a state. Now it's a very difficult thing to get into, but it shows how a story and how the question about drugs can be thrown into the public sphere. And the feedback loop on that is either we spend every penny we have on every cockamamie drug that is out there, or we say we can't afford it. And this government says we can't afford it, so we're rational. And that's part of the issue around, I would suggest, the whole issue of treatment for people. In terms of what do we do now, what can we... you go into any trust, you go into any health establishment, the issues are numerous. You can pick any issue you want. Staffing, facility, equipment, time, just the ability to access some kind of healthcare. It's just there constantly. If you spend 5 minutes standing in any health facility, what you see is a great number of people doing their very best against a very, very badly organised and a deliberately badly organised system, which makes it almost impossible. And I don't know how doctors, nurses, porters, I don't know how they deal with this nonsense on a day-by-day basis. I think maybe the main question you were getting to was, where do you focus? What can you pick up and focus on? Because it's such a big picture. You guys, as Defend the NHS, can pick up on any topic you want. And I would suggest that you focus in on it and you don't try to deal with everything. If it is staffing levels, focus in on that. If it is lack of beds, focus in on that. If it is people taking hundreds of millions of pounds out of the service on a weekly basis, focus in on that. It's try not to have a scattergun approach. As I say, we fight guerrilla warfare, we get involved in case by case issues, and we fight them, and hopefully we fight them successfully in most cases. That's the only thing that I would say in terms of choose your target and just keep firing at it. And there's enough around here, there's so many targets, if we try to hit too many, we won't hit any. Just keep going. I would say that where we're starting from, I would certainly chase the local politicians and I would make them a focus, put them on the spot, make sure they're living up to what we want them to do, because we vote them in, And just on one issue, I mentioned Brexit just as I was finishing my little portion, just on my Twitter feed that the UK does not make any insulin. All insulin that is used in the UK comes from abroad. Come March 2019, anybody who is diabetic is in deep, deep trouble. I speak a wee bit personal on this, my daughter's diabetic, and I speak a wee bit personal on this. But that is the nonsense that we are facing. And I must admit, I did shine with until I saw broker John Bain earlier on today. I'm not defending the EU, but I think when you're talking about rationing food, when you're talking about stockpiling medicine, we really have reached the end game. And that's why I finished with saying, in 2 years' time, you probably won't be here, because there will be no NHS to defend if this nonsense carries on. We really need to get ourselves galvanised and get out there. And pick a target. We all have our own little favourite thing within the NHS, because it does so much. Pick it, concentrate, and go for it. That's all we say.
On the drug situation, we need openness. For example, in the drug industry, some government research bodies will develop a drug, and when they realise it can make money, it's taken out of their hands and given to a private company to make the millions on. That money goes into the private pockets, does not go back to the people that have done the work to provide it. So let's have open policy stuff, open accountability. The government says that about the NHS all the time. Are the government open? Certainly not. As far as the new health secretary, I think there's one simple situation. You can't put a new face on a back bunch. I think he ought to go, sooner the better, and we'll all be better off for it. Finally, just on what again we can do, and I implore you to do this, make the NHS, I'm not saying making it your life, but make it so that when you walk down the street, or down the road to the shops, or you're going to work, you talk to people about it, and you talk to people what's happening in it. We're not making all this up. This is happening. And the repercussions are that people, and I'm sorry to say this, God forbid, will be dying soon because of it. They're not dying already. Because it's just not acceptable. And I come back to it, I might get emotional about it. We're all human beings. We have a moral duty to help other people. And I'm sorry, the Tories are the most callous, ignorant bastards, and I'm sorry to use those words here in public, that I've ever known in my life. How the hell they go to sleep at night, I'll never know. And I will say just one thing. Mr. Pryor, back in the early 70s, he was actually asked by a certain young lady, and these were the words she said to him. "Excuse me, Mr. Pryor, how can we fix the error of 1948? That woman was what they call the milk snatcher, one Mrs. Thatcher.
Evil.
Exactly, and as far as I'm concerned, we have got to change the ethos of the people in this country, because we're not just fighting the ideology of capitalism, we've got to fight the ideology of saying, I'm all right, Jack, and stop the rest. Let us care for one another. That's what we're supposed to do as human beings. It's the right thing to do, and we should all be doing it. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I just want to say thanks to everyone involved. Thank all the speakers, Attila, Raymond, Yusuf, Louise, Ashley, John, and Charles for giving up their Saturday. I'm really, really appreciative of it. I want to thank the Sussex and the NHS who brought the exhibition, and it's really informative, and I hope everyone had a chance to have a look at it. Please do sign up to the campaigns. I think we still got books for sale. Mr. Still selling his book. If you could take that, that would be really helpful. I just want to thank you for coming. It's been a really inspiring day for me. When Sam came with the idea to run the People's Assembly, should we do this conference? I thought, yeah, we've got to do it. This is our NHS. This is the year we want to say something. We want to do something about it. I know it's, I was talking to yourself, but I've learned something. I feel galvanised that there's more to be done, and we can do it. And I think accountability is really, really key. These MPs need to know that this is our #1 priority, and we're not going to be giving up, and we're not going to stop talking about it, and we're not going to stop sharing. And so I just really want to thank you all for coming. I think there's room for more talks. I won't be locking us in a room to make her do any more talks, but I hope to invite speakers back again, and we have another go and be able to see more of the successes that we'll have achieved, rather than just more of this. We're going to be making success. We're going to be campaigning locally. So thanks everyone for coming. And thanks to the centre for keeping open and the campaign. Hope you all had a good day. And I hope to see you soon. And if you signed up for any of the campaigns, you'll be receiving an email from us. We're not going to use your data, so you're safe. I didn't put the tick box to opt out. And I think some comrades wanted Raymond's slides. So if you put your name on the list that says, we will share that. And just again, thanks very much to the speakers. And thank you all for coming.